So tonight, our very first conversation will begin from the Hallowed Chambers of the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives last Thursday, the Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution has put forward a proposal for the creation of 31 additional states across the country. If approved, this move would significantly alter Nigeria's political and administrative landscape, increasing the total number of states from 36 to 67. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, read a letter from the committee containing the proposal during plenary last Thursday here in Abuja. Take a listen to him.
This is to inform members of the House of Representatives Committee on the review of the Constitution that the House of Representative Committee on the Review of the Constitution of Nigeria 1999 as altered has received legislative proposals for the creation of states and local government areas in the following order. North Central. Proposed states: Benue Ala State. From the present Benue State, Okun State. From the present Kogi State, Okura State. From the present Kogi State, Confluence State. From the present Kogi State, Akpa State. From Benue South Senatorial District, Upper State. From the present Benue State, a 37th state to be named Federal Capital Territory, Abuja State.
That's a portion of the statement when the Deputy Speaker read that motion on the floor. So don't forget that the process of amending the Constitution is ongoing for the life of these present National Assembly. Let's get some legal point of view on this. What does this mean? Section 8 of the Nigerian Constitution clearly states how and why and in what circumstance the states can be altered in terms of addition or subtraction. And there will be those who will be asking a question, since 1999, when we've had 36 states, why has it been so difficult to even add one local government? That section is so rigid, so important. And if it's going to be altered, the Constitution, as you see on your screen, talks about creation of state and local government in Section 8 of the Nigerian Constitution. Let's get some sound legal perspectives on this. I'm being joined by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Muiz Banire, who is live for us from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Banire, for joining us tonight on the program. Mr. Banire, I don't know if you can hear me, but I mean, interesting times we are in, isn't it? This is not the first time we are hearing. I've heard proposition of Ibadan State. I've heard proposition of Okun State. There's so many propositions for creation of state, and these sometimes come from groups within the country or nationalities who believe that they are not properly captured and they are not well represented. But for this proposition, 31 additional states will lead us to 67. What's your view on that?
Well, I think that what has happened so far is the attempt to comply with the dictate of Section 8 of the Constitution. As you know, it will originate from the constituency in which they intend to create the state by having 2/3 majority of the members from that place supporting the request to the assembly, and of course supported by 2/3 of the members of the both houses. Thereafter, of course, you will have the referendum. Then after the referendum will be the resolution passed by simple majority of state as well as simple majority of the House of Assembly. But beyond that will now be the responsibility of the National Assembly. So I believe that The process has been triggered, but it has a long way to go as it is now.
There are critical questions as to the need for creation of state, one of which will be the ethnic nationalities. And if you look at it, perhaps the producers can bring the list of the states as being proposed, and in every region of the country are being represented. There are those in the past who feel the northern region of the country has 19 states and the southern region of the country has 16 states. So there is that imbalance in that sense. But southeast region of the country has only 5, and you see northwest with 7, and the rest of the other region with 6, with southeast with 5 states in that region. So one will imagine that the agitation will naturally be for the southeast to have additional states to make it 36 states. But if that agitation is coming from ethnic nationalities up to this point that are asking for almost 31 or up to 31 states, what exactly do you think is going on?
Well, honestly speaking, I do not understand exactly what is going on. I must confess to you, because my one ready answer I have for you is that there seems to me to be a major lacuna in our constitution as far as Section 8 of the constitution is concerned. And what is that lacuna? The lacuna is simply that there is no requirement of viability in the provision of Section 8. So the issues that are raised therein are largely political. And at the end of the day, you discover that you just create for the sake of creating states. And the reality of the matter is that if you are talking about ethnic nationality, I'm not too sure that even the proposition we have on hand now is reflective of the ethnic nationality demand. But assuming without considering that was so, the reality of the matter is that, is there any threat of imposition of the majority ethnic on the minority ethnic group? I'm not too sure that is obtainable right now, because that's one of the reasons or the basis upon which you can agitate for the creation of a state, so that the other majority ethnic group will not oppress you. But that, to a large extent, is lacking presently, because there are so many constitutional safeguards already in our constitution, to the extent that an Igbo man, for example, from the eastern part of the country can come to a place like Lagos or your state or True State and come and contest election. There is no constitutional inhibition. And that shows you the kind of liberty that is enjoyable by each and everybody that is a Nigerian. And beyond that, the other argument that can be canvassed is to say that you want to bring development to the grassroots. But of course, we have, because they have the local government, they are already doing that. In fact, we have so many local government now that are unimpactful. So also so many states that are non-viable and unimpactful. So for me, it shouldn't be the next item on our agenda in the country. So it's a misplaced priority. Thank you.
So you think that creation of states is not necessary at this point in our national life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt. In fact, if there is anything, if there is a possibility of realignment of the state in order to reduce them, that most likely will be the solution. Of course, you know that for some time now, some of us has been talking, and I know since 2012 or thereabout, the Horizon 8 report has been talking about the cost of governance. The cost of governance itself is weighing down the country, and there's no way we can protect without reducing the cost of governance in the country. And right now, what we are going to be experiencing is the ballooning of the same situation, the precarious situation we have found ourselves. So it's something that I believe that honestly is totally unnecessary and unwarranted and not justifiable at all.
So I would like to ask you, if you say that is unwarranted, I'll break it down into different areas of concern. One, is it economical or economic reasons for which you think that it is not viable?
Well, I've answered that to tell you that certainly none of them, if out of the 31 you are lucky, maybe we probably have about 3 that will be viable. All the others would certainly not be viable. Even as we stand now, we hardly can count, seriously speaking, up to about 9 states that are economically viable. Or virtually all the others rely heavily on the allocation from the federal. So there's no basis, in my view, for doing so. It's a misplaced, it's a product, in my view, of bad thinking.
Now, I'm very certain that the propositions didn't come from one source. It came from people of from different states. Like if you go to Kogi State, for example, the Okun people of Okun extraction and some people of Igbo extraction in Kwara State and some part of Ekiti State will likely say they have a similar language, similar dialect, similar culture. They'll probably like to be together. If you go to Adamawa State, those who are clamoring for Amana State, if you go to part of Lagos, Ogun, there are those who will say Ijebu State is probably necessary. Maybe because of their dominance of prominence or whatever. There are a lot of reasons why people will think that it is important. If you go to Oyo State, there are those who will say maybe there's a need for an Ibadan State. In fact, Ogbomoso has how many local government just in one city or Ogbomoso in Oyo State. So there are different reasons for administrative purposes. You have said that, in fact, some of these states need to be merged. But in the real sense of it, look at America, 50 states. They are larger in terms of landmass, more than us. But those who feel that they are not properly represented as ethnic nationalities, how then can they or their voices be heard, and how can they be properly represented in our present, the way our nation is presently constituted?
Well, if you are going to use that the ethnic barometer for that purpose, then there will never be any end to it. It will be like a situation of Pakistan from India, Bangladesh from Pakistan, and there's another state agitating another country from Bangladesh. Now, that's how it will be. There will never be an end to it. In fact, from what if we go by history, what we have been told by historians is that we have not less than 250 nationalities in Nigeria. Then you should be expecting minimum of 250 states in Nigeria. That certainly cannot be. So for me, like I said earlier, whatever fears that they have can certainly be addressed by the Constitution and other legal instruments. So there's no need for state in order to protect yourself, because once the law protects you and the Constitution protects you, then you have nothing to fear. And I believe that as things even stand now, there is no such tendency of oppression in our system. In some other states, that you even find out that, look at the last governor of Kogi, for example, that you mentioned. He came from the ethnic minority, whether accidental or otherwise, he became governor of the state. Even the new person cannot be associated from the minority. So there is no basis for you. You cannot premise this on ethnic nationality. You are going to make nonsense of the entire thing.
So the question here, the understanding is that these are propositions from the different parts of the country. It is not the lawmakers themselves who are coming up with these ideas. So definitely the agitations will be...
I'm sure you are still with me.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir. All right. So the big question here, and if you go back to the list, and let me take it region by region as it's been proposed. The memoranda came from the different parts of the country, and they have been distilled into what we have seen, 31 of them. Let's go back to what was being read by the Honorable Benjamin Kalu, who read it on the floor when that motion was being taken as part of the constitutional amendment process. So from North Central, you can see Benue Ala, from the President Benue Okun, from President Kogi State Okura, from the President Kogi State Confluence, from the President Kogi State Akpa Agba, from the Benue South Senatorial District, Akpa State from the President Benue State, a 37th state, namely Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. That was how the memoranda was being forwarded. Amana State from the President Adamawa State. So going to the northeast now. Katagum State from President Bauchi State. Savannah State from the President Borno State. Muri State from the President Taraba State. In the northwest, New Kaduna State and Gurara State from the President Kaduna. Tiga from the President Kano State. Kanji from the President Kebbi State. Gari from the President Kano State. In Southeast, Etiti is the sixth state in the Southeast. Adada from the present Enugu State. Urashi as a sixth state in the Southeast geopolitical zone. Olu from the southeastern region of Nigeria. Aba State from the southern region of Nigeria. Then go to South-South. The proposition of Ugoja State from the present Cross River State, Warri from the present Delta State, Bori from the present River State, Obolo from the present Rivers and Akwa Ibom State. And lastly, the Southwest, Torebe from the present Delta, Edo and Ondo State, Ibadan from the present Oyo State, Lagoon from the present Lagos State, Ijebu from the present Ogun State, Lagoon from the present Lagos State and Ogun State, Ife, Ijesha from the present Oyo State, Okeogun from the present day Ogun, Oyo, and Ogun State. A long list indeed. But if you look at it, from all of these, from the list that I've read, Mr. Banire, which one would you say could be significant or could help in the conversation around state creation? If critically, the nation comes together and decide that we truly need additional states to add to the 36 states. There are those who are proposing a 37 state, the FCT. There are those who say, oh, we are ripe for an Ibadan state, a Lagoon state, from present-day Lagos, Oyo, and from Lagos, present Oyo. But which of these do you think, perhaps, if there is a need for creation of states, would be necessary?
Well, let me just tell you outrightly, I'm not inclined at all towards the creation of another state. In fact, I have this radical view that we should be thinking of regionalization. Honestly speaking, we will not move with the number of states we keep on creating because the paraphernalia of office itself is killing us already. I do not believe we need to do that at all. It is unwarranted. It's not even competitive. So for me, it's zero. I do not believe we should be creating states at all. If possible, like I said earlier, if it's possible for to even realign some of the states by way of reduction, I will vote for that rather than the situation that we are now. It's totally unnecessary.
But let's go to the legal point of view. Why has it been always very difficult from Section 8? And I know there are about 3 or so portions of the Constitution that the Constitution actually makes very difficult. The NYSC, the Police Act, and there are a few areas that poses difficulty in amendment. But for states, it's difficult for us to add extra state, even local government. Why does the Constitution make it that difficult, or the framers make it that difficult?
Well, I'm not too sure it's so much about the Constitution. It's extremely a political issue. It's a sensitive issue, as you know. Like you rightly said earlier, by the time we even scale the initial audios and get to the region of balancing, you will see that there will be no unanimity in terms of the approval. The good news is that at those levels of the House of Representatives, of the Senate, you will require a minimum of 2/3. Even at the initial day, you require 2/3. It's not something that you can put through easily. And it's necessary. Otherwise, politically, let me tell you, an average politician will want to certainly dance to the tune of his constituents. If they say they want anything, he wants to do it, even if he's not convinced about it. So by putting those, what I would call, in quote, stumbling block, I think it makes it a bit rational, although not totally, like I said. I would have expected, for example, that would be a requirement of viability. Something is not viable, why are you creating it? It's meaningless. So for me, there is still that gap. In fact, that is what actually we should first and foremost amend by way of inclusion. If we put that there and we now test it to say, is this state even viable? What we want to do, show us, demonstrate to us how viable it is. If it is viable, fine, we go ahead. But if otherwise, why are we then multiplying the evils? That would be my own response to that. So it's not so much about, if you don't make it like that, and even like I said, as it is now, it's not stringent enough. We still need to put that threshold of economic viability in the requirement so that at the end of the day, it will not be simply a political question.
So, I mean, the processes are very, very stringent, like you said. The request has to be supported by at least 2/3 majority of members representing the area demanding the creation of the new state in each of the following, namely the Senate and the House of Reps, the House of Assembly in respect of the area, and the local government councils in respect of the area is received by the National Assembly. It goes on, and a long list of how Section 8 want it to look like and how the process is. Perhaps the reason why we have not had a single local government added or altered or removed or even amended since 1999, and one single state been added since then. But one thing that comes to mind right here in the constitutional amendment process, Dr. Banire, is what we need to drive economic development in our nation. And you will hear that the Bola Tinubu administration says it wants to make radical policy reforms. But from the constitutional point of view, if you say that state creation is not viable, it doesn't give us the economic reasoning to be able to move forward as a people. What in your own thinking, Leonard Sik, is important for the lawmakers and the drafters or the reviewers of our constitution to take cognizance of, to help us to drive economic and national development at this time?
Well, the fundamental one, as I said, is the cost of governance. There is no way you can't be running an economy with over 60% recurrent and you think that the economy will grow. It can't grow. Certainly, for where we are in this country, we need a minimum of 70% capital exposure in terms of our budgeting for moving the country forward. But currently, what I will expect the National Assembly to be able to be doing is rationalizing the agencies much more beyond where Orosoye put it. If you look at the Orosoye report, he identified several of them that needs to be scrapped, so many that needs to be merged, and so on and so forth. We have not implemented it to date. That is what should be their business now, what should concern them now. We need to reduce the cost of labor as a matter of urgency. Otherwise, the economy will continue to be threatened. So that should be the preoccupation presently.
Let me quickly take you away from constitutional amendment and state creation. Just recently, the High Court in Akwa Ibom sentenced Professor Ignatius Uduk of the University of Uyo to 3 years imprisonment for electoral fraud during the 2019 general elections. In fact, on the floor of the Senate, there was a proposition from the presidency to the National Assembly for the removal of 3 resident electoral commissioners, one in Adamawa and Sokoto and one other state, based on the past election and their conduct. And those who are saying that this is perhaps good for our elections, but then they are just a bit of what could make the process cleaner or safer. But there are those who are asking for a far-reaching effort in fixing electoral fraud in Nigeria. In your own thinking, Leonard Sik, what are the processes that you think would be very fundamental in this, for us to seal or to have a sane, proper electoral process in Nigeria that will serve the interests of the Nigerian people?
Well, we probably need the whole day to discuss that, but let me just think first and foremost is to start with the internal democracy. We need to strengthen the internal democracy of the political parties, and to do this, there is a need for us to even allow independent candidature. That is part of what should preoccupy the National Assembly as a matter of urgency. Let's allow independent candidates. That will be an antidote to the imposition in the various political parties. That's number one. Number two, again, you probably will have to start considering option 4, like was used in the 1990 election during the MKO days. That will probably we need to have a return to. I'm not too comfortable because we are trying technology. Because technology has been consistently failing us in recent times. We have not really enjoyed the benefits of technology as they have made us to believe that we enjoy. You saw all that happened during the last election, as far as most of the technologies that were claimed to have been brought on board. The reality is that it's not doing us so much favor. For me, I'm not an opposed to of awesome importation of foreign ideas into our electoral system. We need to sit down and calibrate what suits us, what will work for us. For example, when Electoral was adopted that time, everybody saw immediately you will know the outcome of your result. How many election petitions did you see during that period compared to what we have now? So this is something, insofar as the process is not transparent, that is a challenge. We need to liberate the space in a manner that everybody will be able to perceive what is going on and will be able to follow it. I think that is fundamental equally. Thirdly, again, is that although there was an attempt by way of legislation to regulate the funding of political campaign. That has really not worked at all. Again, this is where we need to strengthen our legislation and our institution, particularly the EFCC of this world, the Department of State Security, and a lot of them, if genuinely they will carry out their work without bias, I think they should be able to help the system in this regard, because money is part of what biases the process for us at the same time. So again, we need to also address the qualification of the people that we are putting forward that emerges as candidates in the various political party. The present system seems not to be doing us any good in terms of eligibility to contest and the quality of the product that eventually emerges. So I believe that there's a need to address that. It's not so much, you see, when some people agitated that probably they need to be graduate, we find all manners of certificates flying all around the political space these days. People will say he has a master's in this. So if somebody will tell you he's a lawyer, and you ask him what is even law itself, he cannot define it for you. This is the kind of challenge. So somehow along the line, we need to shift a bit. But there is one fundamental area that I do not somehow have complete answer to, is the area of absolute franchise. I'm not too sure that this absolute franchise will continue to help us. There's a need to put threshold and make people stakeholders in the electoral process. A situation where a majority of the potential voters see their votes or their franchise as merchandise, and they sell it all over the whole place. Of course, it's not good for our system. So we need to recalibrate. Like I used to say, if you look at the United States of America, it takes the United States over 4 centuries, and UK, I think over 3 centuries, for them to start allowing everybody to vote. There were certain criteria from time to time and at different times that were applied in order to ensure that people get matured enough and appreciate the importance of their vote before they can vote. But right now, so many people, in fact, majority of the people that vote in Nigeria or exercise this franchise in Nigeria do not even know the rationale behind it. They don't know why they are voting. They don't know who they are voting for. They don't even know the outcome of it. So not until we are able to connect, to establish a nexus between the lives of the voter and the voting they are doing or the franchise they are exercising, that is when we probably will start getting it right. But right now, I tell you for free, most of the people that determine the leadership of the Nigeria are people that do not even know the basis upon which they are exercising those franchise. So as a matter of fact, the conversation must start as to whether we should continue to entertain this absolute franchise or otherwise. And if we are not going to entertain it, what are the criteria, what are the qualifications, what is the threshold we are going to set for the purpose of determining the true stakeholders who knows why they are voting and why the people, so person must be the person that must be put in position of authority and leadership. I think these are some of the fundamental issues we should start addressing.
Thank you so much indeed for your thoughts tonight. I appreciate it. I mean, there are far-reaching recommendations that you have made, including that those who believe that the appointment of those who will administer the election is also needs to be changed. There are those who believe that there needs to be a more fierce and more rigid way of administering or taking the matters that come from electoral fraud to court, establishing special courts for our election. There are so a lot of issues. And also we understand that there are reviews to the Electoral Act. And I hope that all of these will help in our coming election. But thank you so much indeed. Let us take Mr. Dr. Muiz Banire, who has been speaking with us from Lagos. Thank you so much indeed.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure having you.